This week we've had a lot of news about video games. The last story even made me cry. But what we're going to start with is this mysterious Nintendo playtest. Nintendo announced they're going to be doing a big playtest on the Switch, but they didn't say anything about what it's going to be about. As you can imagine, there was a ton of wild guesses. People thought they were going to be doing something with Switch 2. People thought you were going to be able to play GameCube games on the Switch. People thought they were going to bring back the Miiverse. I mean, there was infinite amounts of guesses about what this could be about. But information started to leak about it. And it seems almost like that's what Nintendo wanted to happen. Participants didn't sign any NDA, but Nintendo requested in the playtest terms and conditions that users refrain from sharing any details about it. Hey, keep this between us. Of course, people were streaming and they were posting photos to Reddit and Twitter of the screenshots from the playtest. I can't show you any pictures or videos because Nintendo's been aggressively taking them down with copyright strikes. It's reported to be Nintendo's first MMO style game. According to the game description, the goal is to work with others to fully develop a massive, expansive planet by utilizing creativity and farmed resources. Players will be able to set up their own zones where they set up what's called a beacon, where they can move, lift, or edit items inside of their own zone. This looks like Nintendo's attempt at a Roblox or a Minecraft type game. I don't play Minecraft or Roblox, so it's not something that I'm particularly interested in, but I'm interested for the people that play Minecraft or play Roblox if another version of that game on Nintendo would be interesting to you. Specifically because it doesn't seem like there's any IP from Nintendo being used in this game. It seems like it's an entirely new world, but that might just be for the playtest. So if you're interested in Minecraft or Roblox, does this sound like it would be interesting to you if they were to introduce Nintendo IP into that kind of world? Let me know in the comments. Moving on to the next story, Wizards of the Coast and Square Enix have teamed up to make a Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy set. While some fans are super excited about this, other fans are a bit skeptical and a bit upset. This will be a major set release, complete with booster packs, bundles, and maybe even commander decks. It's reported that we'll be seeing protagonists like Noctis, Terra, and of course Cloud, and also summons, monsters, and weapons from the series. They even gave us a little sneak peek of some of the art, and I'll show you that right now. They got cool pieces of Titus and Yuna, Lightning, a Moogle, Emmett Selch, Sephiroth, and my personal favorite, Kefka. I mean, that just looks so cool. In any case, the controversy comes from the piece of art that is of Sephiroth. Since this piece of art has been introduced, the internet has exploded with people saying that this has clear signs of generative AI. Pointing to things like the belt buckle on his thigh, the hilt of his sword, the differences in his belt from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, amongst other things. And I think to add to the skepticism, Wizards of the Coast have already been in AI trouble this year. In January, Wizards of the Coast released a marketing campaign where they denied AI was used, but after many people called it out for being AI generated, they went back on their word and admitted that AI was used partially to generate the image. So that doesn't really sow trust amongst the fan base. Personally, I'm not an expert on art or generative AI art, so I couldn't tell you if this is generative AI. And I do, in fact, think it's a good thing that people are looking at things with more skeptical eyes now, because you can't really tell anymore what's real and what's fake, especially as AI just keeps getting better. And I even think it's good to call this stuff out, because that's how Wizards of the Coast got caught last time, with their foot in their mouth. But I think you can be skeptical and excited at the same time. Definitely follow the story, and if AI art is confirmed to be part of the set, then you can make your decision based off that. I just recently got into Magic and I love Final Fantasy, and so this set got me excited. It's a bummer that this set could be tarnished. As an optimistic person, I'm just gonna hope for the best and see where it goes. And just to get a little bit nerdy for a second, for the people in the center of this Venn diagram, I want to create a colorless Sid deck where you just use Sids from all the different games and artifact vehicles. That's what I want. It's a dream. It's not gonna happen, but it'd be sick. If you happen to be in the center of the Venn diagram with me, let me know what your dream Magic Final Fantasy deck looks like. Also, let me know if the accusations alone of the art being generated by AI is enough to deter you from the set entirely. The next story is a quick one, and I want to talk about it because it allows for discussion about the industry as a whole. Firewalk, the studio that made the game Concord, has been shut down by Sony. If you haven't heard anything about the game Concord, it's probably the biggest gaming disaster of 2024. This game is like a live service Overwatch style game. So first person shooters, different characters with different abilities. The budget for this game was massive. It took forever to make, and in the first week it sold 25,000 copies. 1 week after that, Sony removed it from the store and then refunded everyone who'd already bought it. And now Sony has officially closed the studio and sunset the game. So the game is never going to be available to play again. Some people seem to be celebrating this, and I'm definitely not celebrating this. I think failed games are bad for gamers gamers and bad for the industry, and it sucks that people are losing their jobs. This is kind of the nature of the industry being attracted to huge swings and just averse to base hits. It seems like these large companies are jumping on trends, but when a game cycle takes 8 years to complete, the trend's gonna be gone. So that seems like a bad investment strategy in the first place. If you're going to be taking a big swing, don't follow a trend that's 10 years old. Anyway, I digress. The Concord story is officially over. Now the industry is moving on, hopefully having learned some lessons, but you know, probably not. And then, did you know that Indiana Jones hates Nazis? Well, in case you didn't know that, the new game Indiana Jones and the Great Circle denounces Nazis, not zombies. The new game Indiana Jones and the Great Circle denounces Nazis with an in-game statement. The statement says, the story and contents of the game are not intended to and should not be construed in any way to condone, glorify, or endorse the beliefs, ideologies, events, actions, persons, or behavior of the Nazi and fascist regime. And at first I was like, yeah, Nazis bad. Nazis very bad. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, maybe that's a good idea. Another disclaimer. Couldn't hurt. And then I went on reading it. It says names, characters, organizations, locations, and events are either imaginary or depicted in a fictionalized manner, not intended to disrespect any historical or cultural beliefs. Because in the game, apparently, and this makes sense, there's Nazi propaganda on the walls, and you get points for burning it. And I can imagine that a game that's putting in Nazi propaganda kind of wants to defend itself from anyone who might actually use it. So, disclaimer, makes sense. In general, Nazis bad. Game knows it, I know it, and Indiana Jones knows it. Speaking of movie to game adaptation, they just made an announcement for a new game to movie adaptation, and it is The Oregon Trail. If you're younger than a millennial, you might not know what The Oregon Trail is, but if you're a millennial or older, it unironically might have been your first video game. And for all of you who did play this in school, you've probably been waiting for this your whole life. And I want to make it clear, if you're thinking this is some gritty period piece about settlers and all the hardships they had traveling to the West, it's not. It's an action comedy. And I, for one, am actually genuinely, unironically excited about it. It seems like they're putting in work to make it an actually good movie. They've got the script from the writers of Judas and the Black Messiah, they've got the directors of Blades of Glory, and they've got the soundtrack coming from the people that brought La La Land for the Oregon Trail movie. Come on. Come on. It has the pull of an IP that tons of people know, but it also avoids some of the pitfalls that come with adaptations of games. So generally, you don't want to disappoint the fans of a game when you make an adaptation. But what Oregon Trail fans are out there like, oh, I don't want them to mess up the story of the game? No one. No one is. 2, it feels like adaptations are just done because there's a lack of creativity, but with this, there's not even really a story to Oregon Trail, so whatever they do, they have to make the whole thing up. And 3, adaptations often feel like cash grabs where they just, you know, make a movie about an IP that people love and they'll watch it regardless of the quality, but like based on the people they're recruiting to do the movie, it seems like they're actually making an effort to make it a good movie. I'm saying put Nicolas Cage in as the dad. Now, do I think it's definitely gonna be good? Am I super pumped to see it? Not necessarily, but while there's no release date yet, when it does come out, I'm gonna be in the theater. And next, did you know that 87% of video games that were made before 2010 are inaccessible in their original form? And just recently, the US Patent Office has rejected a proposal from the Video Game History Foundation that would work to fix that problem. Now, before I get into the story, I wanna address the elephant in the room of video game preservation. I've heard some people talk about video game preservation kind of as an obvious thin veil to justify stealing games through emulation. I'm not going to talk about the ethics of emulation, but it's important to know that is not what this proposal was. It is far, far more innocent than that. So the proposed exemption says, video games that do not require access to an external computer server for gameplay and that are no longer reasonably available in commercial marketplace, solely for the purpose of preservation of the game in a playable form by an eligible library, archives, or museum. To break that down, they're just asking if games that are not available for purchase can be rented essentially from the library or a museum. This wasn't asking for mass emulation of the games that are out of the marketplace, just that libraries can preserve them. The Entertainment Software Association and other industry lobby groups said there would be a significant risk that preserved video games would be used for recreational purposes. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm actually genuinely asking for anyone that knows more about this than me, can you answer these 2 questions? 1, why would a video game be different than a library checking out, say, a movie, which is obviously used for recreational purposes? Or like a fiction ebook, which is also obviously used for recreational purposes. 2, if the company is not currently selling this game, then how does it hurt the company to allow libraries and museums and archives to preserve the game? Genuinely asking, I would be super interested to know the basis with which this was rejected. It's a bummer regardless. And the last story, and probably the most important story I'll talk about in this video, is a story of a boy named Mats. He was a Norwegian boy born with a degenerative muscular disease called Duchenne's. And because of this, he didn't have the same opportunities as everyone else around him, and because of that, his parents permitted him to play video games more than they would had he not had the disease. And as the disease progressed, so did the amount of time that he spent playing video games. Specifically World of Warcraft. And for most of his life, he was bound to a wheelchair, and towards the end of his life, he had to use specialized equipment to operate a computer. But with this specialized equipment, he maintained a blog and continued playing World of Warcraft several hours a day. And for those of you who've played World of Warcraft or made friends online through video games, this story sounds a lot different to you than someone who doesn't play video games. Because to gamers, you might be thinking, that all sucks, but I'm glad that he had the ability to socialize in video games. But as someone who doesn't play video games, the social aspect of video games is mostly misunderstood. And for Matt's parents, it was no different. They didn't understand that you could live a separate life virtually. And upon his passing, his parents wrote one final blog post on his blog to kind of let any of his followers know he had passed away. To their surprise, tons of people had started reaching out to them, letting them know that Mats had affected their lives in positive ways. And several of his guild members had traveled across Europe to attend his funeral. And only at this time was when Mats' parents really started to understand the life that Mats had led. They read through thousands of pages of different interactions between Mats and his fellow guild members in World of Warcraft, all marked with timestamps and locations in the game, as well as heard stories from tons of Mats' friends that he made in the game. And this inspiring story now takes the form of a documentary that was just put on Netflix this week, and I watched it, and I cried a lot of times. Maybe that's not cool to admit, but I cried like 3 times in the documentary. I don't normally cry in movies, but this one got me. As like a gamer, it just got me. The documentary is called The Remarkable Life of Ibelin. Animators and voice actors have taken the logs of his communications and recreated some of the most pivotal moments of Mats' virtual life in Azeroth, giving the characters facial expressions that match the conversation, voice acting the conversations, and you can hear the stories from the perspective of the players that knew Mats. It's a wonderfully told story. It's a great film. You can find it on Netflix, and it's called The Remarkable Life of Ibelin. And I think this is a super important movie for gamers. It shows the depth of relationships that can be built online. And if you have a partner or parents or friends that don't fully understand your relationship to gaming or your social life in a game, it's a perfect movie to watch with them. So check that out. If you have seen it, let me know. If you watch it, come back and let me know. I would love to know your reaction as well. Because yeah, man, that movie got me. It got me. And this week, instead of telling you all the games that came out last week or the games that are coming out this week, I'm just going to tell you the game I played. And I'm going to make a separate weekly video about the games that are coming out, the games that just came out, the big hits of the week. Let me know if that would be something interesting to you. It would give me a chance to talk more deeply about games that people might not know. I thought that might be a fun idea. Let me know what you think. But this week, I'm going to be playing Farmagia, which is a JRPG where you grow and command an army of monsters to take down bosses. It looks interesting. I'm going to give it a try. That's the game I'm going to be playing. My name is Terrence. I'm going to keep playing games till I find the perfect one. Peace, love,